Have you ever wondered what you would do if the entire world stood against your faith? Would you stay silent? Would you compromise? Or would you risk losing everything for the sake of Allah? Now imagine this. A group of young men made that choice. They walked away from their homes, their families, their future, and hid inside a lonely cave, believing it was their only chance to survive. But what happened next was something no human could have imagined. When they finally opened their eyes, 309 years had passed. The world they once knew had vanished. The people they loved were gone, and history had moved on without them. This isn't a myth. It isn't a legend. It is one of the most astonishing miracles revealed in the Quran, preserved in Surah Al-Kahf for more than 14 centuries. But why did Allah make them sleep for 309 years? What was the purpose behind this extraordinary miracle? And why do millions of Muslims around the world continue to recite this surah every single Friday? Today we'll uncover the complete story of the sleepers of the cave, a story of courage, sacrifice, unwavering faith, and a miracle that continues to inspire hearts to this very day. Let's begin. A kingdom ruled by fear, long before the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, there lived a group of young believers whose story would one day be preserved forever in the Quran. The Quran does not mention the exact time or place of these events. Its focus is not on where the story happened, but on the powerful lessons it teaches. According to Islamic tradition, these young men lived under the rule of a powerful and tyrannical king. He demanded complete obedience from his people, but his authority didn't stop at politics. He wanted them to worship idols instead of the one true God. Anyone who refused his command was considered an enemy of the kingdom. Speaking the truth could cost you your freedom, or even your life. Fear spread throughout the land. Most people obeyed the king, not because they believed in what he preached, but because they were terrified of the consequences. In a world where almost everyone followed the crowd, standing up for the truth required extraordinary courage. Yet among thousands of people, a small group of young men chose a different path. They refused to let fear decide what they believed. Little did they know that decision would lead them to one of the greatest miracles ever recorded in human history. The young believers who refused to bow. Among the people of that kingdom was a small group of young men, unlike everyone else. While the rest of society blindly followed the king's commands, these young believers searched for the truth. They looked at the idols their people worshipped and asked themselves a simple question. How could statues made by human hands possess any power? How could lifeless stones hear prayers or answer them? Deep in their hearts, they knew there could only be one true creator, the Lord of the heavens and the earth. The Quran praises these young men, saying that they believed in their Lord and Allah increased them in guidance. They weren't prophets, they weren't kings, they weren't famous scholars. They were ordinary young men whose faith made them extraordinary. As their belief grew stronger, they could no longer keep it hidden. Soon news of their faith reached the king. They were brought before his court and given a choice that would determine the rest of their lives. Abandon your belief in Allah, bow before the idols, or face the consequences. For most people, the decision would have been easy. One bow could save their lives. One lie could protect their families. But these young believers knew that true faith is not something to abandon when life becomes difficult. With courage, they declared that their Lord was the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and they would never worship anyone besides him. At that moment, they knew there was no turning back. Their choice had made them enemies of the kingdom. Now they had only one option left, to leave everything behind and place their complete trust in Allah. The escape to the cave. After refusing to obey the king, the young believers knew they could no longer stay in the city. Every moment they remained there put their lives in greater danger. The king's soldiers could arrest them at any time, so they made the hardest decision of their lives. They would leave everything behind, their homes, their families, their possessions, everything they had ever known. It was a painful sacrifice. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know if they would ever return. But they believed that losing the world was better than losing their faith. As they quietly left the city, they placed their trust completely in Allah. The Quran tells us that they encouraged one another to seek refuge in a cave. They believed that if they fled for the sake of Allah, He would shower them with His mercy and guide them to the best outcome. After a long journey, they finally found a cave hidden among the mountains. To anyone passing by, it looked like an ordinary cave, a dark and lonely place with nothing remarkable about it. But Allah had chosen this very place for an extraordinary miracle. The young men entered the cave and sincerely prayed for Allah's mercy and protection. They expected Allah to save them from the king, but they had no idea that His plan was far greater than anything they could imagine. Inside that silent cave, history was about to stand still, and time itself was about to become part of one of the greatest miracles ever recorded. Allah's miraculous protection. As the young believers settled inside the cave, they placed their complete trust in Allah. They had no army to protect them, no food to sustain them, no plan for what would happen next. All they had was faith. Then Allah answered their sincere prayer in a way no one could have imagined. Instead of helping them escape immediately, Allah caused them to fall into a deep sleep, not for a few hours, not for a few days, but for 309 years. While kingdoms rose and fell, generations were born and passed away. The young men remained peacefully asleep inside the cave. The Quran describes how Allah protected them throughout those centuries. The sun would rise and set without directly harming them, preserving them from the harsh heat. To anyone who happened to look inside the cave, they appeared awake, even though they were fast asleep. Allah even caused them to turn from one side to the other, protecting their bodies during those long years. At the entrance of the cave lay their faithful dog, stretching out its front legs as if standing guard. Anyone who saw this incredible scene would have been overwhelmed with fear and turned away. Every detail of their protection was perfectly planned by Allah. Nothing was left to chance. The cave had become more than just a hiding place. It had become a symbol of Allah's mercy, power, and perfect protection. And after more than 3 centuries had passed, the moment had finally come for the sleepers to awaken. Waking up. After 309 years, after what seemed like nothing more than a single night's sleep, Allah commanded the young believers to wake up. Slowly they opened their eyes. The cave looked exactly as they had left it. The mountains were still there. The rocks had not changed. To them, everything felt normal. One of them looked around in confusion and asked a simple question. "How long have we been here?" Another replied, "Perhaps a day, or part of a day." None of them could have imagined the truth. They had not slept for hours, or even for years. They had slept for 309 years. As they began to feel hungry, they decided to send one of their companions into the city to buy food. They handed him silver coins that had been in their possession before they entered the cave. Before he left, they warned him to be careful. They believed the king who wanted to kill them was still searching for them. If anyone recognized him, they feared they would all be captured and forced to abandon their faith. With caution, he made his way toward the city. But as he got closer, something felt strange. The roads looked different. The buildings were unfamiliar. The people dressed differently. Everything seemed to have changed. At first, he thought he had simply taken the wrong path. But the deeper he walked into the city, the more confused he became. Finally, he entered a marketplace to buy food. He offered the merchant the same silver coins he had carried into the cave centuries earlier. The merchant stared at the coins in disbelief. They were unlike any money still in circulation. They looked ancient. People quickly gathered around him. Everyone wanted to know where he had found such old coins. The young man became frightened. He insisted that the coins belonged to him and that he had left home only the day before. But no one believed him. Soon, word spread throughout the city. The mysterious stranger with ancient coins was brought before the local authorities. As they questioned him, he told them about himself, his companions, the cruel king, and how they had fled to protect their faith. The people listened in amazement. The king he spoke about had died centuries earlier. His kingdom no longer existed. The persecution of believers had come to an end long ago. The city had completely changed. The rulers had changed. The people had changed. Even generations had come and gone. Only then did everyone realize the incredible truth. This young man was one of the believers who had disappeared over 300 years earlier. His story had become a legend. Yet now he stood before them alive. News spread across the entire city. Crowds rushed toward the cave to witness the miracle with their own eyes. When the people arrived, they found the rest of the young believers exactly as the man had described. For a brief moment, the miracle became undeniable. Allah had preserved his faithful servants for 309 years, proving that his power has no limits. The story became a sign for everyone who witnessed it. It reminded them that if Allah can preserve people for centuries and awaken them exactly when he wills, then resurrecting every human being on the Day of Judgment is effortless for him. The Quran tells us that after this event, people began discussing what should be done with the cave. Some suggested building a structure over it. Others wished to preserve the place because of the remarkable miracle that had occurred there. But the Quran does not focus on the cave itself, nor does it tell us the names of the young men. It does not even reveal their exact location, because those details are not the message. The real message is faith. These young men chose Allah over comfort. They chose truth over safety. They gave up everything they possessed because they refused to compromise their belief, and Allah rewarded their trust in a way no human being could have imagined. Their names may be unknown. Their city may have faded into history, but their courage continues to inspire millions of people more than 14 centuries after the Quran revealed their story. Their story reminds us that standing for the truth is never easy. There may be moments when doing the right thing means standing alone. There may be times when following Allah's guidance requires sacrifice. But the story of the sleepers of the cave teaches us that Allah never abandons those who sincerely place their trust in him. His help may not come in the way we expect. It may not arrive when we want it, but it always comes at the perfect time, according to his perfect wisdom. The miracle of the cave was never just about sleeping for 309 years. It was about showing humanity that Allah is the Lord of time itself. He protects whom he wills. He guides whom he wills. And he is fully capable of bringing the dead back to life on the day of resurrection. That is why, even today, the story of the sleepers of the cave remains one of the most powerful and timeless stories in the Quran, a reminder that true faith, sincere patience, and complete trust in Allah are never wasted. The story of the sleepers of the cave is far more than an incredible account of young men who slept for 309 years. It is a timeless reminder that true faith is often tested when standing for the truth becomes difficult. Those young believers lost their homes, their wealth, and the lives they once knew, but they never lost their trust in Allah. And because they placed their complete faith in him, Allah honored them with a miracle that would be remembered until the end of time. Their story teaches us that Allah's help does not always come in the way we expect. Sometimes his plan is greater than anything we could ever imagine. When life feels uncertain, when the world seems against you, or when holding on to your faith becomes difficult, remember the people of the cave. They chose Allah over fear, and Allah chose them to become one of the greatest signs of his power. If this story inspired you, take a moment to reflect on its message and ask yourself, if you were in their place, would you have made the same choice? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others, so more people can discover the incredible stories and timeless lessons found in the Quran. Thank you for watching, and may Allah strengthen our faith, guide our hearts, and grant us the courage to stand for the truth, just as he granted it to the sleepers of the cave. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.